So, what are the impediments to trade? What are the instruments that countries can use to slow trade between countries? Those are divided into two large groups: tariffs, number one, and non-tariff barriers, number two. Tariffs are a tax or a fee imposed on the goods as they enter into a country. That could be 10% of the value, 20% of the value, or a dollar amount. Tariffs, because they are a tax, tend to cause less trade than without tariffs. Non-tariff barriers are many, but they include such things as input licenses, input quotas, or a restriction on the total amount of goods that can enter a country from another country. Subsidies play a role. If one country subsidizes production and causes it to be more, that is a trade distorting action. We can have voluntary export restrictions, embargoes, and a final one is currency devaluations. If a country causes its currency to be lower value to another currency, it encourages trade from that country to the country where that devaluation occurred. In agriculture, there are three pretty large non-tariff barriers to trade. The first one is subsidies. And many countries subsidize production within their country, and that causes more production to occur in that country. If there's more production that occurs, then there's more likely to be trade or movements of that good to another country, and that's viewed as trade distorting. One of the most famous cases, infamous cases in agriculture, it relates to cotton in the U.S. Both Brazil and the U.S. produce cotton, and they're both exporters. Cotton in the United States was subsidized in such a way that it encouraged production. Subsidies are allowed under free trade agreements or trade agreements, but they can't encourage production. Cotton had specific subsidies that encouraged production. Brazil challenged those cotton subsidies that encouraged U.S. exports, and they won that case. A second area is called Sanitary and Phytosanitary measures, SPS. And countries have food safety concerns, animal health concerns, and plant health concerns. That's quite natural. And there are laws within that country to eliminate those concerns. There are international standards, SPS, sanitary and phytosanitary measures, but each country is allowed to set their own. One of the goals of those is to, again, help government protect their consumers, but it can also use those as a protectionist measure in disguise. There are several cases of this that have happened with SPS. Beef hormones. U.S. allows hormone use. Europe doesn't want that hormone use. Coronavirus testing has also come into play here. And China tested goods for coronavirus, and that was viewed as a restriction to trade. A final case is technical barriers to trade. And one of the largest technical barriers to trade that have come into focus is labeling requirements. Technical barriers to trade or current standards allow for non-discrimination and requires regulations not to be trade restrictive. GMO labeling has been discussed, and here U.S., Brazil make wide use of GMOs. Europe, in particular, don't care for GMOs. EU has labeling requirements, and then we have arguments about whether those are WTO compliant or not. So, there are barriers to trade, and some of the ones that specifically relate to agriculture are subsidies, sanitary and phytosanitary requirements, and technical barriers to trade.